This episode brought to you by Eco Coffee. Be sure to visit Eco Cafe in the village of St. Jacobs. We're pleased to offer Eco Coffee products on our website at foundersmusiclab.com. What should we do our podcast on?
Music,
coffee,
community.
Well, we wanted to talk about what do we want this podcast to be, I think. And this may change as we go because we're making up this whole thing as we go. Because we are a startup. And we're going to follow our journey through this podcast. But we're also going to take snippets of our past as entrepreneurs. Each of us here, Ed and Steve and myself, have had multiple businesses, multiple attempts at starting businesses, being creative. And about, say, 10 months ago, Steve and I, we got together and we decided that we would meet every week because we were both crying in our tears, in our beers, wondering what the hell we're going to do as our last venture tumbled and crumbled and died, and we thought life was over. And that was the beginning of the FML. For those who understand what FML means, that's the origin. What it became was and is the Founders Music Lab, which, if you go to foundersmusiclab.com or .ca, you'll be able to see our website, get our updates, and follow us on there as well. So anyways, we were meeting every week, and for a while, every Tuesday, Monday or Tuesday, we'd get together. I would have a coffee. Steve would not.
Nope.
But the whole idea of meeting around a coffee just seemed like a natural solution for drowning our tears. And we got to talking, and we talked about, well, what are we going to do next? What can we do next? What are we good at? And Steve, quite frankly, is one of the most prolific musicians that I've ever met. He's a producer. He's a composer. He plays the bass. I know some would say that's not a real instrument, but he also plays the piano. He taught my kids music. He's built recording studios. He knows people all around the world, and there's some value in that. Myself, I've been involved in multiple ventures, many including consumer goods, some including media and technology, and the combination thereof, and then back to consumer goods again. And we were meeting every week talking about how we can combine these two. And we thought, what we really need in this community is some sort of place where people could come and collaborate on music. Not the high-end venue guys or just the kids that are learning how to play, but sort of the middle ground, the people who were essentially, they knew how to play instruments, they learned in school, they graduated, got married, had kids, and then periodically picked up their instrument or sang in a church periodically. But then their kids were gone, and they had nowhere to go. And we thought, wouldn't it be great if we had a venue where people would come, they could enjoy a coffee, hang out, and maybe collaborate, get involved with others, start choirs. With Steve's guidance, he has all of these charts and all this experience. We could teach people to sing together, and ultimately we could have performances for those people. And then we started thinking, well, we could add instructional rooms so that people who had learned instruments but hadn't played in a long time and hadn't taken lessons, they could take more lessons and get better at those instruments. And then we could create music circles And ultimately, it just grew and grew. But we thought, okay, this venue needs something. Beyond just that, we need a place to live and breathe and just share ideas. And as every week we got together, eventually someone would come along and they'd sit with us. And the stories and the experiences, typically it was around either a startup or music. It was just incredible. We 2 hours would be gone and we were thinking, man, I wish I had recorded that. I mean, that would have been so awesome to just, because you try to replay this experience with your spouse or a friend, and you can never master whatever that conversation was. And one day, I thought, we should have my buddy Ed join us. Ed Denier from Echo Coffee. He owns the Echo Cafe in St. Jacobs, an amazing place there. He's got a rotisserie in Waterloo. He makes a number of types of coffee. He's got a plantation down in Colombia. He does echo tours. The guy is so passionate about coffee. He'd be a great guy to talk to. And so we brought Ed in. And Ed, I swear it was 3 hours. And Steve and I didn't say a word. And you'll find out. Yeah, that's him in the background there. And it was just amazing. So we thought, let's package this up. We could build something ultimately, and this is our goal. This is a vision. Remember, this is a startup. So we're evaluating what we can build, what we can put together, and in the meantime, we'll have this podcast on a regular basis, and we'll talk about our adventures. We'll bring in guests, and we'll focus the attention on the creation of music, creation of coffee, creation of communities, the things that make things live and healthy and viable and sustainable. And so with that, I'd like to introduce Steve Lehmann.
Hey.
Hey. Full of words. You'll hear maybe 3 or 4 out of a session, I'm sure.
That was one.
Oh, there's 4 now. Take it easy, buddy. And Ed Denier.
Oh, I can talk now?
No. Okay, and I'll continue. No, go ahead, Ed.
Well, for the next 3 hours now, we're going to go into my little charade here. No, this is exciting. I've actually wanted to be able to sit and converse and talk about community and talk about building and doing and making and just bringing out conversation in people and kind of learning their experiences in life. I'm one to always ask people what they do. And people kind of look at me strange at first because they wonder if you're actually interested. And I do find it that I love hearing what other people do. My world seems normal to me, but everybody else's world is so foreign. I mean, as an example, last night I was talking to one of the soccer dads, and I was like, what do you do? And come to find out, the guy is responsible for a grain elevator in Seaforth.
Oh, wow.
And it's the largest collection and growth of beans in Ontario. And they, red beans, lima beans, they grow beans all summer long and store them. And then they have this grain elevator that's a 50,000 square foot facility where they're constantly packaging beans to be distributed throughout the country. And I was like, oh my God, I've been in Seaforth. I played golf there once.
I didn't see a silo.
I saw nothing. But it's amazing that everybody has their own world that they participate in, and they're pretty much clueless to everybody else's. But no one really ever asks. And I'm always, super interested in what other people do. And I want to ask, I want to talk about it, I want to ask them questions, because I find there's always something to learn from these things. And there's always some, aspect of life that we don't get to address normally without asking. Yeah. So anyway, I'll ask a lot of questions. I'll probably say a lot of dumb things. I have a lot of crazy ideas. And I'm excited for this. I'm excited to bring on other people and make them suffer through it.
Yeah, nice. Steve,
Billy.
say something.
I'm excited to do this as well. I think we've had some pretty cool conversations over there at our meeting place on Tuesdays, and some very cool people have come by. And I agree, it would be it is nice to have a vehicle to be able to share those conversations with other people and to document our plans for our big plans, what we're trying to do here.
As we plan them.
Yeah.
Our plans as we plan them.
Our plans, we have a concept of a plan as we move towards making it happen.
Yeah.
It's fun I think it'll be interesting for people to be part of that. It's a cliched word, journey, but it really is a journey from starting from an idea to what's it going to look like in the end, how we got there, and
Who's going to come along with us?
Who's going to come along, and how different maybe it ends up. From the initial ideas, because some ideas are good, some ideas are less good, and then we will learn very quickly which are the better ideas.
Damn, I think I might be getting fired.
So far, you're a good idea.
Yeah, so far so good. I like that he has the pressure on him. Yeah, perform.
Well, when you guys came to me with the idea and said, "Do you want to be a part of this?" and I was like, "But I don't know anything about music. I don't know anything about the world that you guys are living in." So
That's part of the beauty, though.
it is, but it's also a little bit of a. I mean, it was a stretch in the beginning until I understood more of the whole concept, and then you start to see, yeah, we all fit into this thing that you guys have kind of come up with, and it's exciting to learn, it's exciting to participate, and it's exciting to have a perspective that's from a different path. So it does fit in, but at the beginning, it was like, I don't know anything about music.
I can serve coffee.
I can serve coffee to musicians. Those are my early days. I did that. But yeah, we'll get into those stories later.
Yes, and that's what everybody's going to come for.
But the number one way to initially share ideas with people is, let's go for a coffee.
Yeah.
It literally is. If it's a first date, if it's a first business meeting, it's a great way. It's a great excuse to get people in the same room together to have a conversation.
That's how we started.
Exactly.
We started on a coffee,
Yeah.
even though you don't drink coffee.
I don't drink coffee.
But you still came.
Note the date. It is April 22nd. I have never tasted coffee yet.
Will you on this podcast some date in the future?
Maybe.
It's a hook. Keep listening, people. Keep listening.
Well, if I'm going to have coffee, it may as well be good coffee, and we have someone that can provide us with good coffee.
Yeah. Part of the stories with the origins of some of these coffees and
Yeah. Really
how many
cool.
people died. Oh. Okay, maybe not. Maybe that was a movie.
Well, it was a
Never
long
mind.
time ago.
Statute of limitations.
Yeah. No, but I actually have been blessed to been able to travel, to learn, to see, been to different countries to see how it's strange how the one fruit that's traveled around the world and that gets produced and that we all consume as coffee has had multiple iterations, multiple journeys, it's been through many different societies, it's consumed in different ways, but in the end it all comes from the same source. And it all started in Ethiopia, and the last place in the world to actually get coffee was the country to the right, because it went left when it started. It went all the way around the globe and then came back all the way to Africa. So it's an interesting deployment of how something gets around, and particularly in the old days, it followed the equatorial path because of the growth was restricted to that zone, but it made it all the way around the planet, and here we are, and we all have, it's a source of income, it's a source of livelihood, it's a source of passion, it's a source of many things, and to many people, they have no idea about it. To them, it's just...
That's me.
And well, no, because you don't drink it, but to many people, it's just a source of a lift, and they don't understand or know anything besides that. So it's an opportunity to educate, to learn, to educate, and to perceive. And so it's an interesting journey, and it has its very unique path. I've had, I've been in this for a long time, so I've had the opportunity to be the young Turk trying to break ground in areas that you have nothing, no knowledge about. And in the last 25 years, you can see how the industry has changed, the education has increased, the knowledge base is much greater, and it's exciting because you know that you were part of that path of making it bigger, better, stronger in many different areas. So you see the value of the work that you put in.
Well, we're going to hear, I think, in future episodes, there's some of the stories of the people that have been behind all of this that you've met, and some of the stories that you talk about, I think, are going to be very uplifting.
Well, thanks.
The things that people have gone through to get coffee to this state.
100%. It's not straightforward. And I mean, it's funny because many people, even to this day that you talk to, think that coffee grows in a bag on a tree.
I thought it was a can.
Well, sometimes.
Okay.
If you're Illy, it's in a can.
If you're what, sir?
Illy.
Illy?
Illy made the can famous, and it's ubiquitous with that company out of Italy. They package in cans, and there's a valve in the can, and then they distribute worldwide in these cans, and everyone knows the Illy can. And so it's an interesting. I
thought Folgers did it.
Well, those are the other cans.
See, I'm going to learn a lot too.
Yes, you are. And I'm going to unlearn a lot.
Yeah, I'm going to destroy you. How did I get so stupid? And now, a word from our sponsors.
Some mornings are just a damn lie. You deserve better than a watered-down start. Eco Coffee's original blends cut through the bullshit, delivering a taste of bliss that's as raw and real as it gets. Forget the polite pick-me-up. This is an unfiltered rush, an enchanting jolt that will redefine your mornings. There's no faking this kind of pure, unadulterated bliss. It's the only truth you need to start your day.
And now, back to the podcast. I think one of the things that we bring together is that we've all been involved in startups and building businesses, but I would say all three of our approaches have been different. I think the rationale or motivations have been different. And perhaps we could talk about that. Like how did we, I know how I did, and I'll say it, but Steve, how did you, when you built your first music school, like what was the motivation? What prompted you to go that direction as opposed to, say, going into teaching or trying to join a band and tour the world and take drugs, stuff like that.
Sure.
All the natural musician
Yeah.
roots.
Well, the original plan was to go to teachers college and actually be a teacher. I actually did, when I was in high school, I did a co-op. You know how you can do co-op in high school where you do a job experience. And I did one teaching and in classroom, and I enjoyed it. And then I did another one in a recording studio. And I much preferred that. I sort of saw myself in that type of a career, not in a teaching in a structured school sort of a way. And I did enjoy teaching, but on my own terms.
Right.
So starting my own school, I was already teaching out of my parents' house. I had some private students there, and they would come to the house. And it kind of was getting to the point where I had too many students coming in and out.
So mom kicked you out?
Not really. No, not at all. No. But I could tell that it was the numbers were getting a little higher, and I said, hey, why don't I start my own place? And I did. Found a little spot. A landlord took a chance on me, and I got this little spot. It'll be nice and cheap for you. Everything was inclusive. Didn't have to worry about getting electricity in my company's name. And I just kind of grew it from there, but it was all on my own terms. I enjoyed being my own boss, and bringing in people to teach with me. And then we could do things like concerts and things like that with the people that we had as our clients. And we just kind of grew it from there.
And you had the freedom
Yep.
freedom to do those things that you would never get
Yeah.
in a structured environment.
Yeah, it's just different. I mean, there's pros and cons to all of it. But then that allowed me to do some. When you make a living in music, you don't want to put too many eggs in one basket. So I was teaching, I was playing, I was doing a bit of recording and arranging and producing and all that kind of stuff. So if one thing was a little light for a couple months, the other things were somewhat consistent. So that was a nice way to do it. But then the thing I liked about the studio is that I had a space. If people needed to have a rehearsal and that's one of the things we did with our teachers is we would allow them to use the space when they weren't teaching, which I think was fairly unique among music schools. They all had keys. We didn't manage when they were in and out. If you're teaching, that's kind of your room. If you want to bring in, you're playing for a wedding and you want to have people pop in and hear some music, you don't have to do it at your house. You're welcome to do it here. We had a guy who would come in and practice in the wee hours of the morning because he couldn't do it at home.
Mm-hmm.
It was too loud at the house. So it was just having the space, having the flexibility to do what we wanted in that space and build various community things. We ran summer programs, which were always a lot of fun. And I just liked that. I like being my own boss.
Mm-hmm.
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 And then choosing the people around me. And I think that's a big thing. When you're your own boss, you get to choose the people that are working with you, as opposed to if you work for somebody, you don't have any
Mm-hmm.
control at all.
HR controls it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when you're your own HR, if you don't get a great vibe from somebody, you can just move on to somebody else, or you can seek people out if you wish them to be working with you.
Right.
Please join my team.
Right.
So having the flexibility, having the kind of control, and being able to build your own team, I think were some of the things that I really enjoyed about that part of that phase of my life.
So the control, but it's a balanced control,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you have to work with a lot of people. If you're bringing these people on board, why are they doing it? Obviously, they want some freedoms too.
Mm-hmm.
How do you, and there's that whole management of that.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing I liked about it too, is we brought people in who were very good at what they did, and we didn't really have to manage them too much because we were lucky to have them on our team, or this person is a great teacher, or this person is a great choreographer. We work collaboratively, we come up with our goal, and then just set them loose. Don't have to manage them, don't have to micromanage them.
Do you think the music industry, being as challenging as it is, enabled you to find some very talented, credible people?
I think so. Everybody is kind of in a different phase of their life, and doing things the way we did it was often a good fit for other musicians, because if anybody's doing
Now, that's
freelance,
something that you acknowledged. That's something you built into it. It's not something that existed in other venues or places where instruction happened. Did it?
Well, I know that some places for private lessons, they would tell the teachers you can't teach anywhere else. But we wanted to be supportive and say, you can teach for us, but you can also teach for somebody else. And you can also, we had people that would have to take a few weeks off because they were going on tour.
Right.
But that wouldn't stand for other places. But then I view that as an opportunity for the students coming to our place to say, hey, you get to have lessons with somebody who's at this level where they're going on a European tour right now.
Right.
And then when they come back, you can have some more lessons, but good musicians are usually piecing their work together and having something that's reliable and something that you can count on in a small amount. Again, you don't want all your eggs in one basket.
Right.
I think it was a good way to make sure we had good people on our team, and again, allowing them to use the facility as needed, and they would control, when they when they teach.
So there is a level of differentiation there that you identified.
Mm-hmm.
I think that becomes a big teaching moment for a lot of startups.
Mm-hmm.
Is that, copying what other people are doing
Yeah.
is not necessarily going to get you the success that you think you're going to get.
Yeah.
Identifying the things that are missing in the market are the things, and if you can deliver on it, it can weave something considerably more attractive, supportive, and sustainable.
Yeah. Well, I always ran any of my initiatives as though I was a client.
Yeah.
So I would picture being on the other side of it saying, would I like to be giving these people my money?
Right.
Do I feel good about this? And so I think we could have made more money if we had certain policies that other people had in place.
But then you wouldn't be around.
Well, we wouldn't be around 31 years,
Yeah. That's telling.
Yeah. And we had
telling.
happy clients.
Yeah.
And another big one was cancellation. Some places you would have to commit for a certain number of months or the whole year, post-dated checks, this kind of thing. With us, it was just month to month.
Yeah.
And so if you wanted to, because you don't want people coming for lessons if they don't want to be there.
Right.
But if they weren't having a good time and then they show up for lessons and they're like, I'm done, but I have to keep coming because, we've paid 6 months in advance, everybody's miserable. Who wants that? It's not
Well,
a
I can
positive
tell you, my
atmosphere.
kids wanted to go all the time, but it wasn't to play music. It was because they thought Steve was pretty cool. They wanted to get out of the house. So however he made your money off of me, that worked. So Ed, tell me about what really got you going in this world of entrepreneurship. And
Well, my background is very different.
yeah, tell us about your background, because I think that
Well, I mean, depending on how far you want to go back.
I want to know.
I was
about
born
your
in the
dad in
1800s.
CIA and,
I was born in the 1800s. No, let's see. If we go back in time, I was born in the U.S. to Colombian parents. I was the only one in the family that was born there. I have 3 sisters. Grew up pretty idyllic in a small New England town until we moved to Spain. And then all of a sudden, at 6 years old, we were living in Spain, and that was culture shock as a kid. But time passes, and you learn things, and you become accustomed to it. And anyway, I ended up in a small British school with some very rich people, which we weren't, but we were. It was the only school that spoke English, and so my dad was able to get me into that St. Michael's school, and we used to wear purple ties and gray vests with the little cordon around the edges and everything. It was very proper and very British. But anyway, I grew up in Spain, and then my parents divorced and went back to the States. So walked back into the United States into 6th grade, I think it was, and realized right off the bat, oh my God, everyone here is stupid. And it wasn't that they were stupid, but the education style that I was coming from was much more difficult and long. So the school days when I was a kid, they were from 8 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock in the afternoon. And so you had a long school day and you got taught a lot of things. And so when I landed here, everyone thought I was really smart. I wasn't. I just had seen a lot more things because we were in school a lot longer. So it was kind of easy. And then they classify you right away. Oh, you're with the brainiacs. And that's kind of how I started in school. But I mean, when I arrived, I was in 6th grade, but I already had a 9th grade education. So I got to coast for quite a while without having to do anything but fun. But anyway, graduated from high school and, decided to follow the path. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had an opportunity to become an Air Force pilot. And I had a congressional appointment to the Air Force Academy in Colorado. I had applied to a school it's actually a now famous school because the pilots from 9/11 were educated at Embry-Riddle University in Florida. And that was an opportunity to go learn how to fly.
Couldn't have been a good school.
It was actually one of the best in the nation. And so they wanted...
They fly into buildings.
Well, they miscalculated. And I was accepted to Harvard as well and to UMass. And so of all the choices, UMass seemed like the one that gave me the most freedom to bail if and when I needed to bail. So I did go to UMass. Also, I didn't have the funding to do the other things, and I didn't have the commitment at 18 years old to sign up for 10 years for military service, because it's 4 of education and then another 6
right.
of applying your trade. And thanks to that, I was able to skip out on the what war was that? It was
Gulf War in the 90s?
No, it was in the early 80s. It was in Europe. It was the Serbian War.
Yeah.
And so the Kosovo War and all that bombing and all that fun stuff. I could have been a part of that, had I made that choice. So thank God I didn't have to do that.
Yeah, really.
But anyway, and ended up going to university to be an electrical engineer. And so I was following in the footsteps of my father, who seemed to be like the thing that you were supposed to do. I went to UMass, a school known for its engineering, known for its partying as well. So I got a lot of good marks in partying, and I kind of breezed through engineering, and it didn't seem to be difficult to me. It was something that I have that mathematical brain to me, and I'm not very artistic, so it just seemed to work. But as I progressed through 3 years of UMass Amherst, I realized, oh my God, I hate engineering. I hate everything that we're doing, and I don't want to learn more. And then I ran into quantum physics, and that was the end. I was like, I don't get this.
The wall.
Yeah, that was
wall.
my wall. And so, as life has it, personal life, it ended up where I ended up leaving school. It just, things broke down, and I had to go. Now, I've always, since I was 13, worked in the restaurant industry. So that was always the way to make money. My mom, and after my parents divorced, my mom didn't have a lot of money for us, so we had to work. And so I started working at 13 in a steakhouse, and we can get into details of stories, but if you ever watched the show The Bear, well, that was my opening foray into life.
Yes, chef.
Yes, chef, and the owner's son was a coke addict that would come out from the back wiping his nose, and the guy I worked with, used to drink all the leftovers in the glasses as they came into the dish room, and he'd be hammered at the end of the night, and I got to do his work and mine. And I was like, wow, this is crazy, but it was a way to make money, and it was across the street from where I lived. But I was always in the service industry. So wherever I went, that was always a place where you find a home. It's like the home of the wayward people, because everyone in restaurants has to be twisted enough to work in a restaurant.
Yeah.
It's hard work. It's stressful work. It's low pay, long hours.
Yeah.
You're living when everyone else is not working is when you're working, and when you're not working, everyone else is at work. So it's very incestual in terms of the relationships that you form, because it's usually people that are in the industry. But anyway, I did that through university, and then bailed and had to leave Amherst. Just life caught up to me too fast and had to go. So I ended up back in the Boston area working in restaurants for 3 years. I call those the dark years. I don't remember too much of them, other than worked in a lot of restaurants and did a lot of partying. But then after a while, you realize that you should probably finish what you started. So I went back, and the only way to get back into a career in the university and to take advantage of all the time and money spent was to go back to UMass. So I studied literature and linguistics at UMass Boston, because they didn't have any engineering. So after university, I was graduated as a linguist, and I had a double major in literature as well, which I never thought I was going to use for anything, and went back into the bar industry. So I worked in downtown Boston. I worked at several clubs and bars in Boston, got to know a lot of people of all shades and colors. So it is a place where you learn a lot from people. I like to observe people. I like to learn from people. I assimilate people. I'm very chameleon-ish in terms of my behaviors around those that I'm with.
I find people in the restaurant industry they tend to be that way.
Well, you have to be, especially
Yeah.
if you're front-facing, because the person you are is not the person that's serving. It's an acting job because you're accommodating yourself to the people that are there so that you get the best tip that you can.
Right.
So you learn, the good ones learn quickly and use it to their advantage. And I made lots of good money in the bar business or in the restaurant business because you just assimilate what people are talking about, what their interests are, and if you can become part of their, party, then they will tip you well.
Part of the experience.
Absolutely. So
I find a lot of restaurants have failed on that one lately.
Oh yeah.
They don't have those people.
It's true.
Well, and people have changed a lot over the years, so I think that there's now a different mindset to service and to how it's done. And I mean, it's come along a long different way. Who knows where it ends up? And now with the takeout industry and the delivery to your door, and you don't have to cook anymore because they'll just bring it to you. I mean, we've become a society of taking the path of least resistance.
Isolationists.
That too.
It's blame digital for that.
It's very digital and social and all the facility of getting things brought to you.
Right.
In other cultures and in other places in the world, it's not like that. And even, in North America, the big box shopping experience is something that is not present elsewhere.
Right.
So people don't understand that we go and buy a bunch of food, which of course we'll throw a third of it away because it'll go bad.
Not me.
Good, but
Don't tell
that's
my
the
wife.
norm. But that's typical of the behavior in North America.
Yeah.
Whereas you go to places like Italy, and you buy the food that you're going to eat that day, and tomorrow you'll do it all over again. So it's just a different philosophy because they come from a different place, I guess, a different system, a different, the way to produce food and to acquire food is different. So that's how it ended up in a different manner. But getting back on track to how I ended up where I was is that when I got out of university, I was well trained in the service industry. And in the beginning, it's a gold mine. And so as you work in this industry, all the kids that I graduated from university went to these low-paying jobs, and I was rolling in cash. Literally, I slept with cash under my mattress. I didn't have a bank account. I didn't have anything. And it was just fun, and you just had available cash at all times. Did that for a few years, and then for a few more, and then you start to see the pattern of those that you were with in university, and they're all becoming more successful, and they're getting better jobs, and now they're working into that family aspect of life and of nesting and creating and doing these other things, while the rest of us in the service industry are still, partying every night and spending money in cash. But I had a degree. I had the ability to do other things, but I just never had a path. And one moment, an opportunity arose to go to South America to spend some time with my sister, who was in a startup venture of building a bank. And
wow.
I just, had an opportunity to get away. So I was like, oh, I'll go to South America finally. And I was sick of the drunks. I was sick of the bar scene. At this point, I worked in a huge nightclub. We had capacity for like 1,200 people. There was 4 different environments. You had a disco bar, you had a cowboy bar, you had a big dance club. We had 2 volleyball courts, 2 basketball courts, and an outside area that could fit 500 people.
Jeez.
And it was a zoo every single night of the week. And we probably had 45 people working, between service and bar. So it was a big club, and it was in the middle of nowhere, so people would flock to it. But anyway, was doing that, but after a while, it's just the same thing every night. It's that whole repeat, and you see
Rinse
the
and
same.
repeat.
Yeah, and it's the drunks and the stupidity and the irony of life, and you see these people decaying in front of you because of their habits, and it started to wear on me. And at that point, I took an opportunity to go to South America.
But you also see a lot of the people who've been in it for years longer than you.
Yeah, well, I was in
What
that
it's done to
middle
them.
phase of getting to that point where this is becoming the career that I don't want to have.
Right.
So I was able to escape and went to South America. And then in the beginning, when I arrived there, I didn't do anything other than eat, drink, and sleep. And my sister was an executive, and her husband was an executive. They had a baby, and they had a maid, and they had a lady that cooked. And all I did was lay around in a hammock all day and going, this is life. I hit the jackpot. So that was interesting for a while. And then, then one day my sister's like, didn't you graduate as a linguist? Yeah. Why? Well, we need a translator. Well, I don't know how to do that. She's like, you speak both languages, don't you? And I'm like, yeah, but I'm not a translator. But she convinced me that I should try. And that's when I started. And so I went to the bank. I went to the banking industry, and I worked with a bunch of people from Florida on translating a software that they were implementing. And the weird part about it was that I get to work with everybody in the bank because I was their conduit of information. And I'm not dumb. And so the more you translate, the more you learn. And after about 5 months of doing this, they left. And who's the most knowledgeable about the solution? Well, I knew every corner of that solution because I had been involved in all the translation. And so they're like, why don't you stick around and help us a little bit? And so I ended up working with the audit team. And I was data mining on a big IBM computer system. And I didn't really know what I was doing, but I knew enough on how to find things. And sometimes I'd take the mainframe down. I would choke it. I would give it choke holds with, data mining. And I remember the guy, Carlos, he was running the data center. He's like, Ed, you can't do that in the middle of production. But I was just trying to find this answer. It's like, please don't do that. If you're going to do it at night when you're not going to take down the whole system. All right. But I learned a lot about information and where it's stored and how it's stored and how to basically pull information from things. So
you're dealing with numbers then. You're not dealing with people necessarily at that point.
At that point, it was a numbers game and it was a data game. And it was well, and also, the older mainframe systems, they weren't exactly like things are today. So there was repositories of information with specific links that would tie it together. And if you had to know the rules of the links, or else you could get erroneous data. And you don't want to be giving people in a bank the wrong data.
No, there's a compliance issue.
Well, beyond that, there's also, it was just a simple rule of giving them false data that they were going to execute on. So you had to be sure of yourself. So you really had to investigate and learn. But I got good at it, and they kept me on for a while. But over time, you just become too comfortable in your own environment. And this wasn't my gig. I was invited to this party, and it was my sister's. It was her job, and she was the VP of technology, and I was just the Yahoo that was, breaking the mainframe. So eventually I realized that I was going to wreck her gig if I just continued to be myself.
Who brought in this?
Yeah. Who brought in the Yahoo? Flirting with the tellers and going out partying and, so on and so forth. So, it was best to make a clean break. And so from there, we jumped into my brother-in-law and I decided that we were going to, I was a woodworker. So I've always been handy and tool-oriented. So in high school, I learned how to work wood. And so he was huge into woodworking as a side thing. We're like, we should quit our jobs and start a factory and make furniture. Yeah, that sounds great. And that's what we did. And so we started a little factory. It was an empty warehouse, and we wired it all in 3-phase. I had no idea what we were doing, but we just learned, understood, and acted. And we built a factory.
This is pre-YouTube.
Oh, yeah. This is pre-internet. This is... Actually, it was Microsoft's... What was it? DOS 2.1 was the second version, the second iteration. I think it was 2.1.
3.1?
3.1 maybe? Yeah.
But it was 3.11 after that.
Early days of Microsoft. And I remember... they had a computer at home. This is before I started the woodworking thing, that they had a computer at home, and I would turn it on and it would fire up and I'd stare at it, and then it would say all these things, and then it would just stop. And you're like, well, now what do you do? What does this thing do? And then I'd press buttons on the keyboard and see what would happen. And all of a sudden it would do something weird. And I was like, power off.
I broke it.
Yeah. And then shut it off and then wait a few minutes and turn it back on. And it would all load again. I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. You can wreck it and it just rebuilds itself.
Keeps coming back.
So that's how I learned all about Microsoft. At one point, I was actually MSc certified.
Oh, wow.
Years later, I actually put in a lot of work. anyway, I was in the banking industry, and then we went off to do furniture, and we thought that it was a good idea to rifle the style of a company in the U.S. called This End Up, and we copied exactly what they did, but used exotic Latin American woods that were from the rainforest. So we'd make these crazy square pieces of furniture with super rare exotic wood that was available in Colombia at the time. And so there's still some of these pieces of furniture that are out there that were made by us at the time. And we made them, they look just like This End Up. So thank God we failed miserably, and we quashed the business. It happened to be right around the time that the drug cartel in Cali, Colombia was being persecuted, the Rodriguez brothers, and they brought in the CIA, or so the DEA came down in force with the CIA to quash these guys. They had, Escobar died right when I arrived in Colombia. And then within a year and a half to 2 years, they moved to Cali, their headquarters, to quash the drug trade. And when that happened, it was amazing. This city that I lived in, all the cash disappeared.
Oh, wow.
All the cartel went underground, and they took all the available cash, so much so that banks didn't have bills because the cartel had taken them all. There was no money to transact on the street. So if you didn't have a credit card, you couldn't buy anything because no one had bills to be able to buy things. So it was a crash, and we were trying to launch a business in the middle of the financial crash so it didn't work, and we ended up bailing on the furniture company. He's still in furniture now. He does unique pieces for people on the side. He's got a little warehouse, a little shop up in his house. But at that point, it was a dead. We couldn't proceed. And then, wondering what to do next, there was another finance company that bought the same exact software that the bank had implemented. And they were looking for help. And so the people from the Kirchman company in Florida said, there's a guy that lives down there that's a freelance, and he's a translator and knows the system. You guys should find him. So they came a-knocking, and they called me. It's like, how would you like to live in Bogota? Sure, I'll try it. I was doing nothing. So I went to Bogota, and that's how I ended up working in the banking industry again. And I helped this finance company.
You can run, but you can't hide.
Yeah. And
they'll get you.
They found me. I went there. I worked with them, and it was one of these, it's a 1 month contract. All right, we'll go do this for a month. Then they extended it to 2, then to 3. Then they just said, let's just contract you for the whole year. And I was like, sure. And then about 6 months into the project was failing miserably. We made a disaster of this implementation. It wasn't my fault, but I'm a person that likes to document everything that he does just for future use. And
COA?
Yeah. And the VP that was in charge, he was the guy pulling all the strings, and he was the one that was screwing it up. And he tried pinning it on me, and I got called to the board of directors one day. And I was like, oh, no. So I brought my stack of all my files and went to the board of directors, and I sat down. And the guy that was he wasn't the chair, but he was like the VP or whatever, the executive, the second guy in charge. And he's like, what's your name? Edward Denyer. And he says, you're not Edward Denyer. I know Edward Denyer. I worked with him. And I was like, well, I'm pretty sure that is my name, and that's who I am. And maybe for your information, you probably worked with my cousin, because my dad's brother was so intelligent that he named his son Edward Denyer, and he's a year younger than I. So I own the name. He's borrowing this. And you worked with the imposter. And this guy was like, that's not possible. And I was like, really? So we had to explain it to him, and he was like, oh my God, I didn't know there was another one. I'm like, no, I'm the first one. I'm older.
That's the copy.
And then we sat, they grilled me for like a day and a half, and I had all the evidence and all the proof to go, to point it to where the problem lay. So they ended up sending me back to the guy's office, and he had fired me. And so I walked back into the office, and he's like, what are you doing here? You've been fired. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. Your phone's about to ring. And so they called him, and they canned him.
Oh, wow.
But to save face for them, they let me go and paid me in full for the rest of the year. They cut me a check then and there, and they paid me for the next 8 months.
Let this be a lesson to all the young kids working for corporate guys.
Yeah. So I
Take notes.
Document.
I proceeded to take the check, cash it, and went to Cartagena. And so Cartagena's on the north coast of Colombia, and I spent a few months partying at the beach. And I was
With Michael Landon and what was that movie?
maybe, I don't know. I'm not a movie guy.
Oh, okay.
But I spent time in between Santa Marta and
Michael
Cartagena.
Douglas. Sorry.
Michael Douglas. That's
Yeah,
Little
before
House on the
anybody
Prairie,
checks.
isn't it?
Yeah, well, he was also something about
Something in Cartagena?
Cartagena.
Oh, so I might have seen him there.
Yep.
A nightclub or two.
Sure.
Kathleen Turner.
And, I know what movie you're talking about.
There we go. That's the only time I ever heard of Cartagena. So there must be more. Tell us.
Oh, there is. There's always more. Anyway, I spent time in Cartagena, and then NCR came next. So I had a cousin who worked at NCR, and they were looking for help in a certain area, and they need people that were bilingual. And he's like, I got a cousin of mine that's here in Colombia doing nothing. You guys should talk to him. So I went through the interview process from Cartagena, but this is back in the days when you couldn't even get a phone line, right? So
Yeah.
I had to fly back to Bogota for my interviews. So at that point in time, I had long hair, which I now have long hair again, but I was
different color.
I was atypical. Yes, it was very black. I had a beard. I looked like a drug lord, actually. I had curly
You
long
did or
hair.
you do?
I did, and I'm coming back to it. Everything goes full circle.
Coffee's a drug, right?
A legal one, thank you.
Coffee's a drug.
And I went through this interview process. I was tanned. I had an earring. I had long hair. And they're like, who is this freak of nature? But they talked to me and they realized, wow, he actually is intelligent and he could do us a service. So I got hired by NCR to work in what was the beginning of client-server installations for teller services. So nowadays, everything's client-server,
Yeah.
right? But back then, that was a new thing. And they hired me to work on that project. And so once again, I fall into something I know nothing of. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll just sit at this desk and pretend that I know exactly what I'm doing. And eventually I learned a little bit. But it lasted.
That's a good lesson too.
Oh, just be quiet and listen and
Just
learn.
be quiet, listen,
Yeah.
learn,
and
fake it
pretend
till
that I'm
you make
working
it.
hard. Yeah, I'm typing away at this keyboard even though I don't know how to type. No one's watching.
Just making clickety click noises.
Yep. Oh yeah, it was those clickety ones too, the big IBM black keyboards. But I did that for a little bit, and then one day my boss called me to the office, and he's like, "Hey, have you ever been to Argentina?" No, but I'd love to go. He's like, "I need you to get on a flight tomorrow to go to Argentina to learn everything there is to know about check processing." Okay, I think I know what a check is, but I was a good traveler and I had been around the world, so I went to Argentina to learn about check processing. The reason behind this was there was a gentleman who was a very important gentleman in Colombia who was had been the president of the national airline. He was the president of one of the largest banks, and he decided he was going to start a processing center for the check exchange. Everything was done with checks and manual, and he wanted to convert it to images. So there was an opportunity to build a system that didn't exist. And so my boss saw the opportunity, and he needed somebody, and so he sent me. And I was like, okay. So I went to Argentina, and when I landed, it was a bunch of Canadians that were there teaching us. And I was the only guy that spoke English. So right away, I got to meet all the top gurus in this industry from Canada. And I hung out with them, and we went out every night for dinner and drinks and whatnot. And so it was like 2.5 weeks of education. And I learned all about Unix, and I learned all about checks and how they process and reader sorters and all these things that you need to do in order. It was great. Went back, and I was all-knowing. Sure.
Again, fake it till you make it.
Yeah. And so then I got put on this check processing team, and this guy implemented this solution and built a processing center that was capable of processing all the checks in Colombia in a image environment. And so we started with that. And we built it. We installed Unix systems. We built the whole thing. And he built it in the center of the city across from the National Museum on a 7th floor, all encased in glass. And he was turning this ugly back office late night system into a visible showpiece. So we worked on this day and night, but the problem was we didn't have any customers. So we had to borrow checks from a bank. We hired 60 inputters, and we would process the same checks every day. and we had these 60 people that were keying in data. But it was because it was random. They would get different batches every day, so they were doing different work, but we were just running the same checks down the line. But eventually, they got customers. Eventually, they took. Now, fast forward to today.
So they were faking having clients.
No, they were just showcasing what we were
So they
capable
were
of doing.
demonstrating.
It was a demo.
It was a demo.
It was a package demo until we got a customer.
Your first customer.
And then we got one customer, and then two customers, and then fast forward to today, they process 98% of all the checks in the country.
So that would have to be a pretty sizable investment
Yeah.
for not knowing if it was actually going to work or if anybody was going to buy it.
The guy that started the whole thing was a very intelligent guy. He automated a lot of the airline industry in Colombia. So he knew, and he worked in banking too. So he had done a lot of automation in the banks and knew that this was a bottleneck for the whole industry.
Okay.
And so he had it clear, but no one else did. And
Right.
the guy was brilliant, and he was such a gentleman. He was the atypical type A personality, but friendly and engaging, and always talked to the highest and the lowest, never differentiating between them.
Right.
And so he was this, he was just a person that you wanted to follow. He was this magnanimous personality, and he was amazing to work with. And he built a team around himself that was able to implement this thing. So I worked on that project for a few years. And it was amazing. It was a great showcase on how to learn things and how to do things and make big change. So we built this giant industry that didn't exist. To this day, I'm still friends with some of the people that we worked with because we put in a lot of crazy hours.
There's something that sticks with you on being involved in something like that.
Yeah,
And being involved
it
in
marks
a
it for
game
sure.
changer, a world changer.
And growing up, I worked for restaurant chains and implementations too. So I knew what it took to do implementations. This is just a different substance.
Right.
But I was on a team.
That's an interesting point, though. I mean, a lot of these things are cross-sectional. You can go any industry
Yeah.
and apply the same principles.
And you have to have process. Oh, wait. Process. My Canadian has to come out. Process and procedure. But you have to have those things in order to run anything. You have to have some standards, and you have to be able to follow those guidelines, and you have to be able to have something that guides you. So it was a way to learn how to do these things.
Eventually. I mean, those are the things that evolve out of...
But you have to have it in the back of your mind that you can replicate. Because
Yes.
if you cannot replicate, then you cannot achieve the end goal.
Right. So
Eventually,
even when
you
you're
go-
starting, you're discovering.
You're discovering, but you're trying to
But you're trying to
catalog
get it.
your ideas so that later you can write the manual.
Right.
I mean, it's not like
and
if-
other people can do it. And
Yeah.
you can set it up in other places, and that's where value gets created.
Right. And I learned that actually working for Chili's. Do you remember the
Yeah.
Chili's organization?
Yeah.
I started out as a line cook at Chili's, and I accelerated fast through their program of train the trainer thing. And once again, the bilingual thing, we worked at that era. There was a huge immigration pattern in that area of Massachusetts of Brazilians. And so they all worked in the restaurant industry because that was the first place that they could get work. And I remember watching other people that were in charge, and their idea of translation was yell louder. And I was like, it doesn't help by yelling any louder. They don't understand at either one. And so I spoke Spanish to them, and they spoke Brazilian or Portuguese back to me. And we could kind of understand each other. At least it was better than yelling. So they helped prop me up because I helped them. And so we would have this ability to communicate. And sometimes it only takes a little bit of communication to achieve the goal. So that's how I ended up on a trainer's team. And then we would go and implement restaurants in different areas. So they'd send a team out, and you'd go to New Jersey, and you'd be there for 3 months, and you'd set up another Chili's. So and it's funny because one of the things I learned about implementations and startups is that core team that you start with has a special bond, and no one can be a part of that later. And as much as they try to or want to, it's not the same thing, because you suffer through the hardship of getting something, of creating something, and you birth that something somehow, and then you have that bond that's unique to that situation that no one else will ever have.
Right.
And it happens over and over. I mean, whether it's, restaurants or whether it's, operations in a bank or whether it's a coffee company
Or software.
and software development, but it's the people that start from the very beginning that go through those toils of trouble and trying to gel, kind of like what we're doing here. We're trying to figure out.
So what you're saying is founders?
Founders.
Founders.
Yes. The founders are the ones that have the bond.
Yeah, how long did it take us to get there?
I've been probably talking for 2 hours, so.
That's all right.
But yeah, that's
We can
kind
edit.
of we got into, I got to that level, worked for these guys, and then kind of from there proceeded to be of the center. I graduated from Columbia as an organization after that, and they put me in the center of expertise. So now we were doing the same kind of work throughout Latin America, and there was 4 of us on this team, and we would parachute anywhere in Latin America that needed upgrading of their systems to go to images. So, it's funny because about 3-4 years ago, the tellers here in Canada started having these little machines, and they'd capture your check right at the. I don't know if you ever noticed when you go to if you go to a teller, you give them a check now, and they have these little machines next to them, and they drop it in, and then it doesn't work, and they drop it in again, and they turn it upside down, then they try unfolding it. Those machines were the ones we were implementing in Argentina almost 30 years ago. It took 30 years for the company that makes them here in town to be able to install them in Canada and it came down to the legality of the check image. But
I think that was the biggest.
It was.
I worked for. That's how I started. With the bank.
oh, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, the legality of an image was a very
absolutely.
difficult
It is.
challenge here in North America, and that's why checks still exist in
And
the way
that goes back to the compliance thing,
yeah.
and they didn't understand it.
Yeah,
Accountants don't understand technology, generally speaking.
nor should they.
No, they
'Cause
should
then they'll
understand
screw it up.
accounting. Yeah.
Just like they screw up accounting all the time.
No, they don't. Do they?
No, they're nice people.
Yes, it's tax time. We have to be nice.
Accountants are people too.
Way to isolate some advertisers, guys.
Did they advertise?
No,
No.
they amortize, not advertise. And then I ended up having an opportunity to come to Canada. There was a job option, and I applied for it, and they said sure, and I was going to come work at headquarters here in Waterloo. And I was ready to move, and I had a girlfriend at the time, and it was one of those come to Jesus things of, you know what, I have this opportunity, kind of thing you can't pass up on. It's in Canada, so I'm going to have to go to Canada. And she's like, oh my God, I meant to tell you that my parents have applied to this, investment opportunity in Canada, and I get citizenship if I go. And I was like, wow, how can that happen? So my ex-wife was the person, and
Your now ex-wife.
my now ex-wife, she came to
became
Canada.
your wife.
She came to Canada, and then my job offer got rescinded.
Oh no.
There was a gentleman, a really nice Croatian Chilean guy whose name I won't say in public, who kiboshed the thing, and he said, "We cannot set a precedent to let the third world invade the first world, so you can't go." And I was like, "Really?" I quit. But it wasn't that quick. I basically talked to my boss, and I was like, look, I get it that he won't let me go, but I work everywhere in Latin America, and every time I go anywhere, I have to go to Miami first, because as a standard, we have to fly on American Airlines. That was the corporate edict for NCR was you had to take American Airlines if they went to the country you were going to. So I always had to go to Miami. Even if I was going to Venezuela, which is an hour to the right, I had to go north 3 hours and south 3 hours. Whole lot of sense. Cost savings and all. And so I said, what difference does it make if I live in Toronto or if I live in Bogota if I have to take a 3-hour flight to get to Miami? And he's like, you're right. I'm like, well, make that happen. I'm moving. And I'm going to a UB40 concert in Toronto on July 26th. And I'm meeting some friends there. So I'm going to be in Toronto, and I'm not coming back.
See, this is where the music ties in for you.
There you go,
Yeah,
UB40.
UB40.
And that's exactly what I did. I worked right up until the end, and he could never make the deal. And I was like, all right, I quit. I'm leaving. And I packed my stuff and left and came to Canada. And no one could believe that I was doing this. And I'm like, no, I got to go see the show.
So we have UB40 to thank for all this?
All of it, yeah. And I ended up here in Canada, and then the people that I had worked with knew I was here. They knew I was in Waterloo. We ended up in Waterloo because my ex, through a connection, she had worked, when she arrived, this was on her own thing, but she worked at NCR because she had worked at NCR in Columbia. So she got a co-op position here at NCR in Mississauga. And then when I came, I knew people in Waterloo, and I'm like talking to people, oh, they're looking for someone in finance. So she applied to that position in finance. She got the job. We moved to Waterloo. I still didn't have a job. I was just a tourist here. And then they knew I was here. And so they're like, we want to hire you. And I was like, well, this is what it's going to take. And so they ended up interviewing with 3 different people here in Waterloo. And then the payment and processing division interviewed me and said, we're going to hire you. And they got the okay corporate, and I got I got all my seniority back. I got my salary back, my title, and then some. And I started working here in Waterloo. So that's how we ended up in this area. But I didn't work with anybody in Waterloo. I worked for the U.S. division of outsourcing of checks. And so we had 11 centers in the U.S. that we did all this work with. And then, they get thrown into some new thing. And where does it all go back to? Data. So my first project was, we have this little issue. We have 375 customers processing in 11 centers, and we keep sending checks out on the wrong paperwork. Huh? The statements, they would use Bank A's paper to send statements to Bank B, and then the customers would be like, oh my God, my bank got sold. It was just someone screwing up the files and printing on the wrong paper. So that was my task. And so it was great. And I jumped right into it and started to understand the process, how it flowed, where it went.
So were you given sort of entrepreneurial sort of freedom?
I think it was just problem-solving freedom.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't want me to think too far outside the box, but they needed to understand what happened and why it was happening.
What was breaking in the box?
What was inside the box that didn't work, yeah.
Right.
And so I ended up with a small team of like auditor types, people that can dig into data and see patterns, and something I've always been able to do and understand. So I can look at something macro and kind of start to find the similarities, and then kind of dig a little deeper and understand that a little bit better. And so it ended up being that we were just overlapping transmissions of files, and there was no checks and balances.
Right.
So we implemented a system on, using macros in Excel that would tabulate all the inputs and outputs, and then determine, then we would get the right paper on the printers and print everything and send it out. And
did you find there was trying to be gentle here, a lack of problem solvers in these boxes?
Yeah, because they don't hire problem solvers. They don't want people to poke at what they've already made. So they want just compliance.
Right.
And I mean, in the end, that was the reason why I didn't really fit in anywhere, because I'm always...
I know. You're telling me about these data positions and the technology and I get the problem solving side of things, but it seems very confining for what I know you to be.
Well, and I didn't know that of myself. I was still pretty young.
So there's a discovery. So how old were you then? This is a lot of stuff happening in how long a period?
And we're not even at coffee yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't even gotten to the...
So I've been in coffee for 25, and I'm almost 60, so...
35.
Well, 35 was when
Look at me. That's math right there.
Well done.
Psych guy.
But and it was going in a good direction, and I had a good position. I didn't like what I did, and I wasn't really a nice guy. I was, I was always put into fires, and so the stress of it all, I didn't realize how much it affected others, but it affected me in ways that I didn't know and didn't, understand. But by a stroke of luck, they sold the whole division off. At one point in 2002, they basically sold our whole division in the U.S. to a check processing company out of Milwaukee. And they had an option with all the staff that they bought with the division to to make a decision in 365 days whether they were keeping them or not. I lasted 364 and then got let go with a group of people. Now, I was lucky because the laws in Canada stipulated that you cannot be transferred from one job to another at a distance greater than 90 kilometers. That was the law at the time. I don't know if it still is that way. I don't really care anymore. But in my favor, they said, we're going to transfer you to a company called, I think it's Intria in Toronto. And they do the check processing here in Canada. And it's right on Mavis. And it was like 94 kilometers from my house. And I found out about this law and I was like, nope, I'm not going to do it. And so my boss, who is a brilliant man in New Jersey, he's like, oh, well, here's your 2-week notice. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, yeah, we're letting you go. Here's your 2-week notice. And I'm like, do you realize I live in a different country and we have labor laws that you can't do that? Yes, I can. You work for an American company. like you're just a genius. So next step is you can talk to my lawyer. So then lawyered up, and it was a fight for almost 8 months.
Jeez.
And in the time while they were battling it out, I couldn't work, or if I did anything that I would get compensation for, they would take it out of my earnings. So I took up golf instead, and I went and got a job as the night waterer out at Foxwood. So I know that course literally like the back of my hand because I drove around at night for
So you
a
were
whole
responsible
summer.
for putting all the water at Foxwood?
Yeah.
So that's where most of my balls have gone.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I get it now.
Yes.
You're the one. You owe me.
They didn't have back in the early 2000s.
Is that Maui's?
It was Maui's, yeah.
Yeah.
I have my story with Maui, but they didn't have a watering system. It was sprinklers. So I would get there at midnight, and I would drive around the course all night with a big Q-beam flashlight and go to each hole and put a sprinkler in and turn it on. And I had to wear wet gear because as soon as you put it in, it would go splash everywhere, and the thing would go and you had to get out of the way or you get blasted with this 50-foot shot of water. So I was always pretty wet at night. But I would drive around in circles and then keep switching because you could only water 14 holes at a time. That was enough pressure that the pump had.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did all summer. And I would do that till 7 o'clock in the morning, change out of my wet gear into golf gear, and play 18. I would play 18 holes. I'd be home around 11, sleep till about 4, wake up, make dinner. My ex would come home. We'd sit down, have dinner together, and then I would take a nap and then go do it all over again. And I got down to a 10 handicap that summer. I played 96 rounds of golf, I think.
Oh, dream.
Yeah, it was.
That was a dream, yeah.
And then it was after that the coffee thing came about, and it was a friend of mine who was an engineer in Bogota, and he's like, have you ever thought about roasting coffee? And I was like, what are you talking about? It's like, you like coffee. I'm like, I always have a coffee mug in my hand, but that's all I know. And we were going to Colombia to visit my dad, and so we went and saw him, and he showed us his little facility, and he had this little tiny roaster, and on the main floor of this house where they had their engineering business upstairs. And they started roasting coffee, and a cousin of his owned a restaurant, and so they started selling coffee in the restaurants. And I was like, this is fascinating. This is really interesting, and I really do like coffee. And so came back with the seed of an idea. I don't know if that was me. I don't know. Oh, well. I came back with a seed of an idea, and I got back and I opened the newspaper. You remember when there was newspapers? I opened the Record. And
we used to use them for bird cages and stuff.
And for lighting fires.
And lighting fires. Oh, the good old days.
And in the inner folds of the Waterloo Region Record, or is it Kitchener-Waterloo Record? Anyway, there was looking for independent coffee shop owner for the new Kitchener market. I think we can do something. And so this terminology of roaster retailer was new in the coffee industry. And I was like, I think we're going to do this. So I started running a business plan. I didn't know how to write a business plan. So I went to the business center, and they're like, this is what you need to do. All right. So we started writing a business plan. And that year I went to the SCAA show in Boston. It just happened to be in Boston. I was like, oh, great. I can go see my mom.
Which show was that?
The Specialty Coffee Association of America at the time. So it was AA at the end. And I went to this event in Boston, and I signed up for all the education on how to start a coffee business. And the education was shit, and I didn't learn anything from them. But they were, feigning that they had the solution, and in the 3-binder set for $19.99. But I went and I saw the magnitude of this coffee industry, and I was like, oh my God, this is really, really big. And it's the second largest traded commodity in the world. It was a huge industry, and there was thousands and thousands of professionals. And I was like, I think I fit into this world. And it was from the true business types, suit and tie, to the most eclectic, odd people that had been in the restaurant industry. There was everything from one end to the other and in between. And I was like, this is a place where I actually fit in. And so that's how I started. And I came back from that with renewed interest, and then we submit a plan to the city, and they accepted us. And so I started a roasting facility in the Kitchener Market with a little coffee shop in 268 square feet.
Wow.
And that was in 2003. And then ever since, but once again, there was no manual.
Once you made that step,
there was no going back.
There's no going back.
And I realized that I had a passion for what I was doing. I never did it for money. I never did it to become a magnate in business. I never did it for the reasons that a lot of people do these startup things. I did it because I found I could make my own decisions. I could solve my problems. I could engage with other people. I could talk and communicate with others. And it was the medium was coffee, but the business was all about people.
Right.
And that was what really drove me in a way that, and trials and tribulations, all of them. Was I successful? God, no. I was a really good failure for about 15 years. I just never could get traction. I was always missing one ingredient, and that was sales. To this day, I still don't have a salesperson because I hate sales. And I'm good at closing, and I can close someone that's already there. They just need to take that final step. I can give them that handheld experience and get them over the line. But all the legwork of calling and appointments and
trying to convince someone into doing something,
and it's always
that
the
they
wrong
never thought
people
they were
in
gonna
the
do,
industry that are making the decisions. So the bean counters, they're the
Oh,
ones
yeah.
that make the decision, but they don't drink coffee. And so it was a really hard challenge, but I learned tons. And I knew after a little while that for the rest of my life, this is what I was going to do. This was the passion that I didn't know I had. And so no matter what, to the day I die, I will be in coffee because it gives me the satisfaction. And I sleep well at night knowing that what I do is important to me and that what I do helps others. I don't want to be a rocket scientist and have to deal with the possibilities of the rockets falling out of the sky. I don't want to be a brain surgeon and do something wrong and kill someone. There's a lot of things but if you don't get your coffee today, you'll get it tomorrow. And it's okay.
Yeah.
And this is a job also where people thank you. When do you ever go to the bank and say to the teller, oh my God, you did such a great job today. You gave me my money and you didn't complain. This is wonderful. Thank you. No one does that.
My machine never tells me that.
Right. So, you find, after going around the globe in different directions, doing different things and, having successes and failures, but never really understanding that you love to do something. And then you finally find it. I mean, you're lucky, Steve, for example, I listened to the music. You knew it was in you all along. You just had to find a way to follow it to where it took you. Bill, I don't know. I'm not sure yet. We'll decide that one later.
That'll be in the next hour or two.
But no, it's you love community and you love engaging and you love talking to people and you love building things and so you found that passion. Well, it took me a long time to find it, but
I think we were my journey is not as far, but it's strangely similar in sort of the route that it took, because I never knew what I wanted to do when I grew up. And finding the passion, though, finding the thing that is you, it takes some people. It took me until probably maybe 4 or 5 years ago to really understand who I was and what really drove me. Because I look back, and it was one of those things that, I've been doing all of these businesses, and I don't do it for the fame or the money. I do it for the challenge. I do it for the creativity. Like, I can't be stifled. I can't be controlled. the more I'm controlled, the less productive I am. And so I always needed that element of freedom. I was always chasing, trying to figure out how I could get it and what it was that was truly driving me. And I found over the years that it wasn't really my businesses or any of the ventures that I was involved with that really filled my heart. It was the stuff I was doing as a volunteer. It was the stuff I was doing as a music director at a church. And the only reason I became a music director at the church is because I'm not religious. I needed something to do there. And I liked music, and I played a bit. And but then I was one of those churches where they needed a guitar player. So I said, yeah, that sounds like fun. I can do that. And then within a year, it was like, okay, we need someone to take the key and be able to be here an hour before and set things up. And everybody took a step back, and I realized that I was the only one that was stepping forward, that was in front of everyone. So I turned out to be that guy.
I know that lesson.
What are you guys doing? And but it turned out to be one of my greatest experiences. Was that I was now asked to lead this choir, and it was a liberal Catholic choir. I won't say what it was, where it was, but we had a range of talent. I don't think any of us were really that great. We had some excellent voice, like a couple excellent voices, and then we had a bunch of average voices, which I was lucky to be one of. We had a piano player who could play chords on the piano, but he bought the piano for the church, and he just loved being part of it. And we made this little community out of this little group. That church grew tenfold because of the music. And we emphasized that we don't care about the stuff on the edges, the extreme stuff, the complicated music. It wasn't. None of us were really into the or had that experience. We just found songs that we could play and sing, and we worked hard to sing together. But we also made sure that they were songs that the whole congregation could sing along with. So they were easy to say.
So no Black Sabbath?
I tried to introduce that. We got into metal a little later on.
Oh, nice.
And I got it, Avita.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But people just enjoyed it.
Well,
And the community just grew. And what I loved was that, and what I realized is that I'm really good at building community. I'm really good at encouraging those who are nervous or less skilled. I'm very good at including them in the process.
mm-hmm. It's important.
And combining them with the experienced and trying to navigate that whole journey of ego and relationship and creating a community success, something that we can all look towards. In we work hard together over months and months, and then we have this big show at the end. And we have regular shows. We have some good little ones, and then we have big ones. And it was that whole trying to find that community. And it was really, once we were shut down by the big church because we were taking all the congregants from the money-paying churches, then I realized I really missed it. And I wasn't part of a big corporate thing. I was now, and the thing that I loved about it was that we weren't constrained. We were able to develop and create together collectively. So all of the ventures that I've had, I've managed to build little communities and build them up and build them to something that started with nothing. But ultimately it took a while to really understand what the passion was. So Steve's passion was early on, identifying that he needed to be in music, and that was the thing that he had to be involved with. You went through a large gambit of different experiences.
Yeah, and I honestly, I never belonged to the corporate world, but I thought I was supposed to.
Yes.
So I probably was the best imposter that, because this is my obligation. This is what I'm supposed to do. This is what I signed up to do. And, you don't want to be doing that.
I was with the Royal Bank. My job was to go in and parachute into these branches and take over the branch while they were getting these brand new ATMs. And so my job was to move people away from tellers to machines back in the mid-'80s. People didn't like that too much. And we were also going through centralized administration. So a lot of the jobs that we were doing from an administrative standpoint was going to Toronto. And so we were eliminating positions there. So basically, I was the change manager, hatchet man, to all of these small towns, and I'd be there for like 9 months and then up and and I thought, this is a place. I graduated from university. It was one of the first jobs I got. Now, coincidentally, I did work in the restaurant industry from the time I could get a job. So I understood that whole world of service and having a second life outside of the main life and trying to figure out where I fit in. And I was fairly good at those things, but I realized it wasn't a life that I could. I was also, we were very, I wouldn't say staunchly Catholic, but we had a process. We had, you're going to go to school, you're going to meet a gal, you're going to get a job, you're going to get married, you're going to buy a house, you're going to have children. Like, there was an order of operations. And part of that was the job. Mm-hmm. And you were going to get into this corporate job or institutional job. You were going to get a good salary with good benefits, and it'd be a safe life. But it was a prison.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was a pure prison. You had no control over where you were going, what jobs you were doing. I quickly realized about 3 years in that I could never really have a strong roots or my own family that had strong roots. If I were picking up every year, I would have to pick up my wife. My wife could never have a job. My kids could never have the same friends, all of those things. So I was lucky to realize that part, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I left the bank. My wife went back to she was able to get her job back at where she was before, and she stayed at that for 36 years. While I built businesses and tried to figure out what I was doing. My first business, a buddy of mine asked me if I could help him, and I was doing nothing, so I said sure. And he had this idea for a product that we ultimately called Frostbuster that you sprayed on your frosted windows and it would de-ice it. And it was a biodegradable, and he came to me, it was a concept. There were two other guys. We took it from a concept to 2.4 million in sales in 6 months.
Wow.
We had it in every store across Canada. And we thought we were God's gift to consumer products. And I thought, okay, this was fun. I get to create. We built our own teams. We sold the company like at month 8. And we were on our way. We went off and did our own things. And I failed miserably. But then I succeeded and back and forth. But I knew I didn't want to work for a corporation, but I did want to build and create and do stuff. I didn't realize what was really fueling me was my desire to be part of a community and build a community and guide a community and grow a community. In each case, that's what I was doing.
And I understand that because fell into a community at one point and realized, oh my God, this is amazing. It's a sandbox that you get to play in, and you get to make shapes, and you get to, you get to create.
And you're building it with other people who have the same similar interests.
Yeah, well, everyone's attached and pulling the cart in one direction, and you're like, this is, natural collaboration.
Yeah. I have found, though, over the years, like those things that existed forever are slowly dying.
So are we.
Yeah, so are we. So we got to keep at least some sort of sense of community going. No, I'm a member of Kiwanis in Elmira, and I'm the youngest guy. There's not too many, and I don't go to the weekly meetings. The guys who do are up there, and they are so dedicated, and they are so caring about the city or the town of Elmira. But they can't get any of the younger people out.
They need coffee.
They do need coffee.
Coffee is always the answer.
And a little music.
Coffee and music, seriously.
Yeah.
Maybe with coffee and music, you can get the young people to actually care.
I think so.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe we'll find out.
Might need some cannabis too.
Well, it's legal now.
Yeah. It still freaks me out. It still freaks me out to be in public and smell it and go, oh my God.
We're the cops. What am I?
That was me bumping into the mic. I was running from the cop.
Well, you're still twitching.
See, it still makes me nervous.
Yep.
All right. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Ed.
Thanks, boys.
And we'll see you next time.
Sounds great.
Cheers.
Laters.
You know that feeling when a track just hits? That's Eco Coffee's signature blend espresso. It's been the undisputed leader of our espresso bar since the jump, and we're not changing the set list. Why mess with perfection? This isn't some fleeting B-side, it's a chart-topping shot that's bright, balanced, and sweet with a crema so smooth it's practically a baseline. No remixes needed.